The waste chute rumbled as Trell dragged the leashed creature down the narrow corridor. His fine robe swept the metal floor, collecting dust he would complain about later to his servants. The creature stumbled on its 6 legs, trying to keep pace with the angry merchant who yanked the chain without care. They passed other aliens in the service hallway. A Quillen family pressed themselves against the wall, parents covering their children's eyes. A maintenance worker dropped his tools and hurried away. Everyone who saw the creature turned their heads or made sounds of disgust. The thing was hideous by every standard in the galaxy. Trell stopped at an unmarked door leading to the maintenance tunnels. He punched in an override code he had paid good money for. The door hissed open, revealing darkness and the smell of coolant fluid. Perfect. Nobody came down here except the repair crews, and they worked different shifts. The Kralex whimpered. It was a soft sound, almost like a question. The creature looked up at Trell with mismatched eyes, one blue and one yellow, set at different heights on its crooked face. Its jaw hung at an angle that made eating difficult. Scales covered its body in patches of brown and gray that did not match. When it had been a pup 6 months ago, Trell thought these features might correct themselves as it grew. They had not. "Get in," Trell said, shoving the creature through the door. The Kralex stumbled into the darkness, claws scraping on metal grating. It turned back, confusion clear in its uneven features. Trell reached down and unclipped the identification tag from the collar. The tag was expensive, engraved with his family crest. No point in wasting it. "You were supposed to be beautiful," Trell muttered. He thought about the breeder who sold him the pup. The Vorsian had promised a magnificent specimen, perfect for showing off at social gatherings. Instead, this thing had driven away his dinner guests and made his business partners uncomfortable. His wife refused to be in the same room with it. The Kralex took a step toward him. Trell raised his hand and the creature flinched, dropping low to the ground. Good. At least it knew better than to approach. "Do not follow me," Trell said. "If you come back to my quarters, I will call security and have you disposed of properly. This way you have a chance. Maybe someone else will want you, though I doubt it." He stepped back through the door and sealed it. The last thing he saw was the creature pressing against the barrier, making that sad whimpering sound. Trell turned away and straightened his robes. He had a business meeting in an hour and needed to change into something cleaner. The Kralex stood alone in the dark corridor for a long time. The air here was colder than Trell's heated quarters. Strange sounds echoed through the tunnels, mechanical hums and distant clangs that made it jump. It tried the door but could not open it. The creature curled into a ball, shivering, trying to understand what it had done wrong. Hours passed. The Kralex did not move much. Its stomach hurt from hunger. Trell had not fed it that morning. Now it understood why. The creature's crooked jaw made it hard to clean itself properly, and its fur had become matted over the past weeks. Trell had stopped grooming it months ago when he realized how it looked. A sound made the Kralex lift its head. Footsteps, heavy boots on metal, coming closer. The creature pressed itself against the far wall, trying to become invisible. In Trell's home, being noticed often meant being hit or yelled at. A light appeared around the corner, bright and focused, attached to someone's helmet. The Kralex squinted against the glare, heart-pounding. The footsteps stopped. "Well, hell," a voice said, not angry, surprised. The light moved away from the Kralex's face, pointing at the floor instead. "What are you doing down here, buddy?" The creature stayed frozen. The figure crouched down and the Kralex could see him now. A human. Shorter than Trell but broader in the shoulders. He wore a stained work suit covered in grease and coolant stains. A tool belt hung at his waist, heavy with equipment. His face was covered in dark stubble, and his hair stuck up at odd angles under the helmet. "Hey there," the human said softly. He moved slowly, keeping his hands visible. "You lost." The Kralex did not understand the words, but it understood the tone. Gentle, concerned. Nothing like Trell's voice. The creature's ears twitched, one pointing forward and one stuck at an angle. The human reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out a small bottle. He opened it and poured some water into his palm. Thirsty. He held out his hand. The Kralax could smell the water. Its tongue felt dry as sand. But taking food or water from strangers was dangerous. Trell had taught it that by snatching away treats at the last second, laughing when the creature jumped back in fear. The human did not move. He just kept his hand extended, water pooling in his palm. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not gonna hurt you, promise." The Kralax took one small step forward, then another. The human stayed perfectly still. The creature stretched its neck out, ready to pull back at any sign of danger, and licked the water from his palm. Cool and clean and wonderful. The human smiled, not a mean smile, a real one that reached his eyes. "There you go, good boy or girl, not really sure yet." He poured more water and the Kralax drank it all. Then the human reached into another pouch and pulled out something wrapped in paper. He unwrapped it, revealing half of a protein bar. Hungry. The creature's stomach made a loud noise. The human chuckled and broke off a piece of the bar, holding it out. This time the Kralax did not hesitate. It took the food gently, careful not to bite the fingers. The bar tasted better than anything Trell had ever fed it. A crackling sound came from the human's helmet. A voice spoke through a communicator. "Attention all station personnel. Unauthorized creature reported in maintenance sectors. Exercise caution. Security is conducting a search." The human looked at the Kralax, then at the sealed door behind it. His jaw tightened. "Someone dumped you, didn't they?" The Kralax tilted its head, not understanding the words but hearing the anger in them. Anger not directed at it but at someone else. That was new. The human stood up and looked down the corridor, thinking. Then he looked back at the creature with its crooked face and mismatched eyes. He made a decision. "All right, buddy," he said, reaching down to offer his hand. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Rafe's quarters smelled like oil and metal. The small apartment sat in the workers' section of Meridian Hub, where rent was cheap and neighbors minded their own business. He guided the Kralax inside and locked the door behind them. The creature pressed against his leg, nervous about the new space. "Easy now," Rafe said, removing his helmet and tool belt. "This is home. Well, my home. Guess it's yours too now if you want." The main room held a couch covered in old blankets, a work table buried under spare parts, and shelves lined with tools and bits of machinery. Pictures hung on one wall, showing Earth landscapes and animals Rafe had known as a kid. A small kitchen area occupied one corner, barely big enough for one person. The Kralax explored slowly, sniffing everything. It paused at a picture of a dog, head tilted. The Earth dog in the photo had perfect symmetry, glossy fur, and bright eyes. Nothing like the creature's own reflection in the metal surfaces around the room. Rafe watched it move. 6 legs should have looked clumsy, but the Kralax adapted its gait to compensate for its uneven build. Smart. He grabbed some blankets from a storage bin and arranged them in a corner, making a soft nest. "You can sleep here. Better than that cold tunnel, right?" The creature approached the blankets but did not lie down. It sat awkwardly, favoring its stronger legs. Rafe noticed dried blood on one paw where the skin had cracked from neglect. The fur was matted in places, and he could count ribs under the patchy scales. "When did you last eat a real meal?" Rafe asked, heading to the kitchen. He rummaged through his supplies and found some dried meat strips he had been saving. Not fancy, but nutritious. He placed 3 strips on a clean plate and set it on the floor. The Kralax stared at the food but did not move. "It's okay," Rafe said, stepping back. "All yours." The creature glanced at him, then at the food, then back at him. Testing. Waiting for the trick. When Rafe sat on the couch and picked up a datapad, pretending not to watch, the Kralax finally leaned forward and took one strip. It chewed carefully, wincing when its crooked jaw made the movement difficult. Rafe made a mental note to find softer foods. Maybe some of that Centaurian grain paste Pliv was always eating. It looked disgusting, but was gentle on the mouth. His communicator buzzed. A message from station security scrolled across the screen. All residents alert. Missing creature potentially dangerous. Report any sightings immediately. Reward offered. Rafe deleted the message. Dangerous. Right. This scared thing in his quarters was about as dangerous as a wet napkin. He pulled up the station database instead and searched for information about Kralax species. The entries were limited. Kralax came from a distant world on the galaxy's edge. They were pack animals, loyal and intelligent, bonded strongly with their owners. Expected lifespan of 40 standard years. And there, buried in a footnote, was the detail about asymmetrical development. Occurs naturally in roughly 1 out of every 100 births, Rafe read aloud. While aesthetically non-standard, these individuals display no health defects and possess normal cognitive function. Historical records indicate asymmetrical Kralax served as companion animals in several ancient cultures. So the crooked face and mismatched eyes were just genetics. Natural variation. Nothing wrong with it except that most species in the galaxy treated anything different as defective. "You're not broken," Rafe said, looking at the creature. "You're just rare." The Kralax finished the first meat strip and carefully took the second. Some trust was building. Good. A knock at the door made them both freeze. The Kralax dropped low, ready to bolt. Rafe held up a hand. "Stay quiet," he whispered, pointing to the bedroom. The creature understood the gesture and limped quickly into the other room. Rafe opened the door to find Pliv standing there. The Centaurian's 4 arms held various tools and a concerned expression on his scaled face. "Evening, Rafe. Heard you came back early from your shift. Everything all right?" "Fine," Rafe said, blocking the doorway. "Just tired. Long day checking those coolant lines." Pliv's eyes moved past Rafe, scanning the visible room. "You hear about the creature's search. Station's in an uproar. Some rich Vorsian claims someone stole his pet." "Stole?" Rafe kept his voice neutral. "Thought the announcement said it was missing." "That is what Trell claims now. Earlier today he tried to have it disposed of through waste management. Paperwork got flagged. Now he is saying it escaped and was taken." Pliv's upper arms crossed. "Strange, yes." "Very strange," Rafe agreed. "But I have not seen anything, been in the tunnels all day." Pliv studied him for a moment. The Centaurian was not stupid, but he was also not cruel. "If you did see something," Pliv said slowly, "you might want to know that Trell has many friends in station administration. He is pushing hard for searches of workers' quarters." "Appreciate the warning," Rafe said. "Also," Pliv continued, "you might want to know that I am scheduled to conduct safety inspections in this sector tomorrow, but my equipment malfunctioned today. Will take me at least 3 days to repair." He handed Rafe a small device. "If you happen to need to scan for structural weaknesses before then, this spare unit works fine." Rafe took the device. It was a privacy screen generator, not a structural scanner. It would mask biosigns from casual sensor sweeps. "Thanks, Pliv. I will check my walls tonight." "Good neighbor," Pliv said, nodding. "Do that, and Rafe, some species measure worth by appearance. Centaurians used to do this too long ago. We learned better, perhaps others will as well." He turned and walked away down the corridor. Rafe closed the door and activated the privacy screen. The Kralax emerged from the bedroom, looking worried. Rafe knelt down to its level. "What should I call you?" he asked. The creature tilted its head. "Cannot just keep saying, 'Hey you.' How about Buddy, that work?" The Kralax's tail moved slightly. Not quite a wag, but close. Rafe reached out slowly and scratched behind the creature's uneven ears. Buddy leaned into the touch, making a soft sound that was almost a purr. "All right, Buddy," Rafe said. "We have got 3 days to figure this out. Better get started." 2 days passed before Rafe contacted the others. He spent the time earning Buddy's trust and learning about Kralax behavior through database searches. The creature was smart, understanding gestures and tone even without shared language. Buddy learned to come when called and stay when asked. The crooked jaw made eating messy, but they worked out a system with softer foods and patience. Lucia arrived first, carrying a medical scanner tucked under her jacket. The human doctor worked in the station's clinic, treating everything from space sickness to industrial accidents. She had warm brown skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When she saw Buddy, those eyes went soft. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, kneeling down. Buddy approached cautiously, sniffing her extended hand. "What did they do to you?" "Neglect mostly," Rafe said. "And emotional abuse, I think. He flinches when I move too fast." Lucia ran the scanner over Buddy's body, making notes on her datapad. "Malnutrition, dehydration, minor infections in the paw pads. Nothing I cannot treat. But Rafe, this is a healthy animal otherwise. The asymmetry is completely natural." "I know," Rafe said. "Found it in the database, 1 in 100 births." "Then why would someone abandon him?" Lucia asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "Because he is ugly by galactic standards," Hank said from the doorway. The big cargo supervisor ducked his head to enter, his bald head nearly touching the ceiling. Earth's higher gravity had made him dense with muscle, intimidating to most aliens. Buddy took one look at him and wagged his tail, apparently judging by character instead of size. "This is the thing everyone is looking for?" Hank asked, scratching Buddy's head with one massive hand. "Station security is checking cargo bays and storage units. That Vorsian merchant is offering serious money." "Trell," Rafe said. "His name is Trell and he is lying. Pliv saw the disposal order himself." Lucia finished her examination and gave Buddy an injection of vitamins and antibiotics. The creature barely reacted, trusting her gentle touch. "So, what is the plan? We cannot hide him forever. Station policy requires registration for any animal over 5 kilos. "Working on that," Rafe said. He pulled up files on his datapad. "Been researching galactic animal rights law. It is complicated. Technically, abandoned animals become station property, but proving abandonment is hard when the owner claims theft." "Can we prove Trell abandoned him?" Hank asked. "Maybe. Pliv saw the disposal order, but that paperwork was pulled. Trell has connections in administration." Rafe scrolled through more files. "There is another option, emotional support animal designation. If Buddy qualifies as a therapy companion, the ownership transfers to the person he is supporting." "Can you prove you need emotional support?" Lucia asked. Rafe shrugged. "Live alone on a station millions of miles from Earth, working double shifts to pay off family debt back home. Never see sunlight or breathe real air. Yeah, I could probably use some support." "But you have to prove the animal can provide it," Lucia said. "That requires testing and certification." "Which takes time we do not have," Hank finished. "Security is escalating the search. Heard they are planning mandatory quarter inspections starting tomorrow in the maintenance sectors." Buddy sensed the tension in the room. He moved close to Rafe, pressing against his leg. Rafe absently scratched behind the creature's ears, thinking. "What about a hearing?" Lucia suggested. "Force the issue into the open. Make Trell admit what he did." "In front of who?" Rafe asked. "Most aliens on this station would side with him. To them, disposing of an ugly animal is just practical." "Not all of them," Hank said. "Judge Cass is fair. Diluvian, right? Their species has some weird honor code about protecting the weak." "But filing for a hearing means revealing we have Buddy," Rafe pointed out. "They will take him immediately and put him in the station kennels while the case processes." "The kennels are better than the waste disposal," Lucia said quietly. Rafe looked down at Buddy. The Kralex gazed back with mismatched eyes, trusting and calm. In 2 days, the creature had transformed from a terrified wreck to a gentle companion. The matted fur was cleaner now. The cracked paws were healing, but the real change was in Buddy's posture and expression. He felt safe. Putting him in the sterile station kennels, surrounded by cold efficiency and no affection, would undo all of that. Buddy needed more than just food and shelter. He needed to be wanted. "What if we document everything first?" Lucia suggested. "I can write a medical report showing the neglect. We can record Buddy's behavior, his intelligence, his bond with you. Build a case before we go public." "How long would that take?" Rafe asked. 3, maybe 4 days for a solid documentation package." "We do not have 4 days," Hank said. "I heard Trell talking in the cargo bay today. He is planning something," sounded angry. A proximity alert buzzed on Rafe's door panel. Someone was approaching. Buddy's ears perked up, one pointing forward and one stuck at its usual odd angle. Rafe checked the security screen. 2 station security officers stood outside, Officer Drax in front. "Quick," Rafe whispered. Lucia and Hank moved into positions that would block sight lines to Buddy. The Kralax, understanding the need for quiet, slipped into the bedroom without being told. Rafe opened the door. "Officers, can I help you?" Drax, a tall Taurelian with rigid features, held up a datapad. "Routine inspection. We are checking all quarters in this sector for the missing creature." "Missing?" Rafe asked. "Heard the owner claimed it was stolen." "The story changes every few hours," the second officer muttered. She was Quillen, shorter and rounder, with a skeptical expression. "May we enter?" Drax asked. It was not really a question. Rafe stepped aside. "Of course, but as you can see, my place is small, not much room to hide anything." The officers entered, scanning with handheld devices. The privacy screen Pliv had given Rafe scrambled the biosigns, making it hard to distinguish between humans and background radiation. They checked the main room, the kitchen area, even opened the storage bins. "The bedroom?" Drax asked, moving toward the door. "Messy," Rafe said, "but go ahead." Drax opened the bedroom door. Buddy sat perfectly still in the corner behind a pile of laundry, camouflaged by shadows and clutter. The officer swept his scanner across the room, frowning at the interference. He looked at the pile of laundry but did not investigate further. "Nothing here," the Quillen officer said. "Can we go? I have 6 more quarters to check." Drax nodded slowly, still staring at the bedroom, but he turned and headed for the door. "If you see anything, report it. Trell is offering 5,000 credits for information." "Will do," Rafe said, closing the door behind them. He waited until their footsteps faded before breathing normally. Buddy emerged from the bedroom, tail wagging. Crisis averted, for now. Rafe filed the petition 3 days later, standing in the station's judicial office with Buddy at his side. The Kralax wore a simple harness Lucia had modified from medical equipment. His fur was clean now, brushed until it shone despite the uneven patches. The crooked jaw still made him look odd, but at least he appeared healthy. The clerk, a bored Zentari with too many eyes, barely glanced at them. "Filing type." "Ownership dispute and animal welfare violation," Rafe said, sliding his datapad across the counter. "Evidence package attached." The clerk's eyes finally focused on Buddy. Several of them blinked in different patterns. "This is the creature everyone is looking for." "This is Buddy," Rafe corrected, "and yes." "Security should be notified," the clerk said, reaching for a comm panel. "Station law requires animals in custody disputes to remain with their current custodian until hearing resolution," Rafe quoted. "Section 47, subsection 12, unless the animal poses an immediate danger." The clerk hesitated. "You studied the regulations." "I did my homework," Rafe said. Lucia had spent 2 full nights helping him memorize every relevant law. "I am requesting an emergency hearing. The evidence shows clear abandonment and abuse." The clerk scrolled through Rafe's submission. Medical reports, timestamped security footage showing Trell abandoning Buddy in the maintenance tunnel, Pliv's testimony about the disposal order, photographs documenting Buddy's condition when found versus his current health, even character statements from other humans on the station. "This will cause problems," the clerk said. "Trell is connected to powerful people." "Good thing we have laws then," Rafe replied. The clerk sighed with several mouths. "Hearing is set for tomorrow, 900 hours, courtroom 3, Judge Cass presiding. You will need representation." "I am representing myself." "That is unwise. Trell will have expensive lawyers." "Cannot afford lawyers," Rafe said. "Just going to tell the truth." The clerk printed confirmation documents and handed them over. "Good luck, human. You will need it." Word spread quickly through the station. By evening, everyone knew about the hearing. Rafe returned to his quarters to find a message waiting from Pliv. "I will testify tomorrow. Truth matters more than keeping my job." Hank sent a message too. "Got 12 other humans who want to come to the hearing. Support squad." Even strangers sent messages. Most were curious. Some were angry that Rafe would challenge someone like Trell. A few, surprisingly, offered encouragement. One message from an elderly Diluvian said simply, "I will be watching. Make him answer for his cruelty." Rafe sat on the couch with Buddy pressed against his side. The Kralek seemed to sense the importance of what was coming. His mismatched eyes watched Rafe carefully, reading every expression. "Tomorrow decides everything," Rafe told him. "If we lose, they take you back to Trell, or worse, the kennels permanently. If we win, you stay with me." Buddy licked Rafe's hand with his crooked tongue. Simple affection, uncomplicated loyalty. These were things most species understood intellectually but did not always feel. Humans felt them deeply, which was probably why Earth had domesticated so many different animals over the centuries. "I will not let him hurt you again," Rafe promised, "no matter what it costs." They both slept badly that night. The courtroom was smaller than Rafe expected. Rows of seats faced a raised platform where Judge Cass would sit. The Diluvian judge was already present when Rafe entered, reviewing files on a holographic display. She had pale blue skin and wise eyes that had seen many years of station life. Trell sat on the opposite side with 3 lawyers, all Vorsian, all wearing expensive suits that cost more than Rafe earned in a year. The merchant looked confident, even amused. He barely glanced at Buddy, showing no recognition or emotion. The gallery filled quickly. Humans clustered on one side, including Lucia, Hank, Pliv, and at least 20 others Rafe knew from the station. Other aliens filled the remaining seats, most looking curious or entertained. A few looked genuinely interested in the outcome. Judge Cass called the session to order. "This hearing concerns ownership and welfare of one Kralek's individual, currently designated as Buddy. Petitioner is Rafe Cortez, human mechanic. Respondent is Trell of the Vorsian Trade Collective." She looked at both sides. "This is a civil matter, but I expect professional conduct. Begin." Trell's lead lawyer stood, a sleek female named Cirrus with perfectly groomed fur and sharp teeth. "Your Honor, this is simple theft. My client legally purchased the Kralek 6 months ago. He has documentation proving ownership. The creature was taken without permission." She displayed the purchase agreement on the courtroom screens. Everything looked official and legal. "Mr. Cortez?" Judge Cass asked. Rafe stood, suddenly aware he was wearing his cleanest work clothes, which were still stained and worn compared to everyone else. "Your Honor, I do not dispute that Trell bought Buddy. I dispute that Buddy was stolen. He was abandoned." "That is a lie," Trell spoke up, his voice smooth and practiced. "The creature escaped. I have been searching for it constantly. I even offered a reward." "You ordered it disposed of through waste management," Rafe said. "Station records show you submitted the paperwork." "Those records were falsified by someone trying to frame me," Trell replied smoothly. "I have enemies in business. They would do such things." Judge Cass raised a hand. "Mr. Cortez, can you provide evidence of abandonment beyond the disputed records?" Rafe felt his heart sink. Trell's lawyers must have scrubbed the disposal order from the official system, but Lucia had prepared for this. Your Honor, I have witness testimony. Pliv, a Centaurian maintenance supervisor, saw the order before it was removed. Pliv stood in the gallery. I did see it, Your Honor. Trell submitted the disposal order himself, using his personal access code. The code was stolen, Cirrus interjected smoothly. We have a cybersecurity expert who will testify that my client's account was compromised. Of course you do, Rafe muttered. Judge Cass looked thoughtful. What else, Mr. Cortez? Rafe played the security footage showing Trell dragging Buddy into the maintenance tunnel and leaving him there. The courtroom went silent watching it. Trell showed no emotion as he sealed the door, abandoning the frightened creature. That proves nothing, Cirrus argued. My client was taking the Kralex for exercise. The creature ran away when the door opened. He removed the identification tag, Rafe pointed out. Why would he do that if he planned to bring Buddy back? The tag was malfunctioning, Trell said. I intended to replace it. Judge Cass studied Trell carefully. And the reward you offered, when did you post that? Immediately after discovering the creature was missing, Trell said. Station records show you posted the reward 4 hours after Mr. Cortez filed his petition, Judge Cass said. Not immediately after the disappearance. Cirrus stood quickly. My client was distressed and confused about the timeline, perfectly natural given the circumstances. The hearing continued for another hour, arguments going back and forth. Rafe presented medical evidence of neglect. Trell claimed the Kralex was just clumsy and difficult. The truth seemed stuck between dueling narratives. Judge Cass finally held up her hand for silence. I would like to see the animal in question. Bring him forward. Rafe walked to the center of the courtroom with Buddy at his side. The Kralex moved calmly, his 6 legs coordinated despite their uneven length. His tail hung relaxed. He looked at Rafe frequently, checking in, making sure everything was safe. Approach Mr. Trell, Judge Cass instructed. Rafe felt Buddy stiffen. Your Honor, I do not think. It is not a request, Mr. Cortez. Rafe gently guided Buddy toward Trell's table. With each step closer, the Kralex's body language changed. His tail tucked, his ears flattened. By the time they were 3 meters away, Buddy was trembling. He planted his feet and refused to go further, making a sound between a whimper and a growl. Interesting, Judge Cass observed. Now approach Mr. Cortez's table. Rafe walked back to his side. Buddy followed instantly, pressing against Rafe's legs. His tail began wagging again. The trembling stopped. The transformation was immediate and obvious. The creature clearly prefers you, Mr. Cortez, Judge Cass said. However, that does not determine legal ownership. Many animals bond with rescuers, even temporary ones. Mr. Trell, approach your property. Trell stood and walked toward Buddy. The Kralex backed away immediately, eyes wide with fear. When Trell reached out a hand, Buddy flinched so hard he nearly fell over his own legs. A sound came from him, high-pitched and terrified. Stop, Judge Cass ordered. Trell returned to his seat, showing no concern for Buddy's distress. Your Honor, Cirrus began, the creature's behavior proves nothing. It has been living with Mr. Cortez for days now. Of course it would be unfamiliar with its rightful owner. Unfamiliar or frightened, Judge Cass asked. There is a difference. The judge reviewed her notes, then looked at both parties. I am prepared to rule. However, before I do, I have questions for Mr. Trell directly. Trell stood confident. Of course, Your Honor. Why did you purchase this Kralex specifically? I wanted a companion animal. The breeder recommended this one. Did the breeder mention the possibility of asymmetrical development? Trell hesitated just for a second. No, Your Honor. Interesting. I have the breeder's standard contract here. All purchasers sign an acknowledgement that 1 in 100 Kralex develops asymmetrically. It is clearly stated. Did you read the contract before signing? I must have missed that section, Trell said smoothly. A businessman of your experience, that seems unlikely. Judge Cass pulled up another document. I also have your insurance claim from 3 months ago. You tried to return the Krollex to the breeder, claiming defect. The breeder refused, citing the contract clause. You then attempted to resell the animal but found no buyers. Is this correct? Cirrus whispered urgently to Trell. He ignored her. Your Honor, I tried multiple solutions before considering disposal. The creature was causing problems in my household. What kind of problems? It was ugly, Trell said flatly. My guests complained. My business partners were uncomfortable. The thing's appearance was damaging my reputation. The courtroom went silent. Even Trell's lawyers looked uncomfortable. He had just admitted the real reason in plain language. Judge Cass leaned forward. So you decided to dispose of a living, healthy animal because of its appearance. It is not a person, Your Honor. It is property, ugly property that decreased in value. I see. Judge Cass turned to Rafe. Mr. Cortez, why did you take the Krollex? Rafe stood, Buddy pressed against his leg. Because he was scared and alone, Your Honor. Because someone needed to care whether he lived or died. On Earth, we have dogs that look like Buddy. Some have crooked faces or missing legs or fur that grows wrong. We do not throw them away. We love them anyway. But this is not Earth, Cirrus interjected. Station law recognizes property rights. Aesthetic preferences are valid reasons for disposal, provided proper procedures are followed. Which Mr. Trell did not follow, Judge Cass noted. The disposal order was submitted, yes, but he did not wait for processing. He abandoned the animal in an unauthorized area, creating a safety hazard. Even if we accept his property rights, he violated station regulations. She stood and everyone in the courtroom rose with her. I am prepared to rule. Legally, Mr. Trell retains ownership of the Krollex. His purchase contract is valid. Rafe's heart sank. Beside him, Buddy seemed to sense the bad news, whimpering softly. However, Judge Cass continued, Mr. Trell violated abandonment protocols. Station code requires proper surrender to animal control or registered rescue organizations. His actions endangered the animal and violated safety regulations. The penalty for improper disposal is 15,000 credits. Trell's face went pale. Your Honor, that is excessive. The fine stands. You have 3 options, Mr. Trell. Pay the fine and reclaim your property. Pay the fine and surrender ownership to station authority, or forfeit ownership and have the fine waived. Everyone understood. The Krollex was not worth 15,000 credits to Trell. It never had been. Trell stood there calculating. His lawyers whispered urgently. Finally, he spoke. I forfeit ownership. The creature has brought me nothing but trouble and expense. If this human wants it so badly, he can have it. Very well, Judge Cass said. Ownership is transferred to station authority. Mr. Cortez, you may file for formal adoption. However, this process requires background checks, facility inspections, and species-specific care certification. During the evaluation period, which typically lasts 30 days, the animal must remain in station kennels. 30 days. Rafe looked down at Buddy, who was staring up at him with trusting eyes. The kennels were clean and professional, but they were also cold and impersonal. No affection, no companionship, just efficient care while bureaucrats processed paperwork. Your Honor, Lucia stood in the gallery. May I speak? Judge Cass nodded. Identify yourself. Dr. Lucia Santos, Station Medical Officer. I have examined this Krollex extensively. He has severe separation anxiety stemming from previous trauma. 30 days in isolation could cause serious psychological damage, possibly permanent. What do you suggest, Doctor? Emergency foster placement with Mr. Cortez while the adoption processes. I will personally monitor the animal's health weekly and report any concerns to the court. Judge Cass considered this. Trell's lawyer started to object, but Trell waved her off. He was done with the whole situation, ready to leave and forget it ever happened. I will allow it, Judge Cass decided. Mr. Cortez, you have 30 days to complete all adoption requirements. The Kralax remains in your custody under doctor's supervision. If you fail to meet any requirement, custody reverts to station authority. Understood. Yes, Your Honor, Rafe said, relief flooding through him. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, the requirements are extensive. Judge Cass looked at Buddy one more time. Though I admit the creature seems well cared for in your hands, court dismissed. The next 29 days tested Rafe in ways he had not expected. Station bureaucracy moved slowly, requiring forms for everything. Background checks dug into his past. Inspectors examined his quarters twice, measuring space and checking safety equipment. He had to prove he understood Kralak's dietary needs, exercise requirements, and medical care protocols. Lucia helped him study, quizzing him on facts about the species until he could recite them while half asleep. Hank modified Rafe's quarters to meet safety standards, installing proper ventilation and non-slip flooring. Pliv donated credits to help pay for the adoption fees that kept accumulating. Buddy stayed through all of it, growing stronger and more confident each day. The Kralax learned his name, several commands, and the layout of the station. His fur grew glossy with proper nutrition. The cracked paws healed completely. He gained weight until his ribs no longer showed through the patchy scales. Other changes were less visible but more important. Buddy stopped flinching when people raised their hands. He approached strangers with curiosity instead of fear. His tail wagged frequently. The whimpering stopped entirely, replaced by small rumbling sounds when he was happy. On day 15, something unexpected happened. Lucia asked Rafe to bring Buddy to the medical center. I want to try something, she said. They found a young human woman in one of the waiting rooms. Her name was Rita, an engineer who worked in the fusion reactor section. She sat alone, staring at nothing, her eyes red from crying. Rita's father died last week, Lucia explained quietly. Ship crash on the way to visit her. She has no other family and refuses to talk to counselors. Rafe understood. You want Buddy to help. If he wants to, no pressure. Lucia opened the waiting room door. Rita, this is my friend Rafe and his companion Buddy. May they sit with you. Rita looked up, saw Buddy's crooked face and mismatched eyes, and something in her expression shifted. What happened to him? Born this way, Rafe said, leading Buddy closer. Some people thought he was ugly because of it. He had a rough time for a while. Buddy approached Rita slowly, reading her body language. When he was close enough, he placed his head on her knee and looked up at her with those uneven eyes, not demanding anything, just being present. Rita's hand moved automatically to scratch his ears. Then she started crying again, but differently this time. Not silent tears of isolation, but deep sobs of grief. She leaned forward and buried her face in Buddy's fur. The Kralax stayed perfectly still, letting her hold on to him. They sat like that for 20 minutes. Rafe and Lucia waited quietly. Finally, Rita pulled back, wiping her eyes. Thank you, she said to Buddy. I needed that. The Kralax's tail wagged. He licked her hand once, gentle and reassuring. Lucia documented everything. This is what I needed to see, she told Rafe later. Buddy has natural empathic abilities. He responds to emotional distress instinctively. This qualifies him for therapy animal certification. Will that help with the adoption? Rafe asked. It will speed it up significantly, and it opens other possibilities, Lucia smiled. There are 47 humans on this station. Most of us are lonely and far from home. Buddy could help a lot of people. The idea grew over the following weeks. Rafe started taking Buddy on visits to other humans during off hours. a cargo worker dealing with depression, a teacher missing her children back on Earth, a pilot recovering from a bad accident. Buddy sat with each of them, offering silent comfort and non-judgmental presence. Word spread beyond the human community. A Centaurian merchant whose business had failed, a young Quillan whose family had disowned her, even a Taurelian security officer dealing with trauma from a violent incident. Buddy did not care what species they were. Sadness was sadness. Loneliness was loneliness. On day 28, Rafe received his final inspection notice. The adoption committee would make their decision the next day. He had passed every test and met every requirement. His quarters were approved. His knowledge was certified. Character witnesses had spoken on his behalf. It should have been a sure thing. But that night, alarms blared through the station. Emergency in the cargo bay. Rafe was off duty but ran toward the sound anyway, Buddy following. They found Hank pinned under a fallen container, his leg crushed. Other workers were trying to lift the massive crate, but it was too heavy. Buddy squeezed through the gap where Hank lay. The big man was conscious but in shock, eyes unfocused. The Kralex pressed against him, making those rumbling sounds. Hank's breathing steadied. His hand found Buddy's fur and held on. "Stay with me, Buddy," Hank whispered. "Just stay." Medical teams arrived and carefully extracted Hank. He kept holding onto Buddy the entire time, even as they loaded him onto a stretcher. Lucia had to gently pry his fingers loose. "Buddy needs to let the doctors work," she told him. "But he will visit you later. Promise." The accident made station news. Security footage showed everything, including Buddy calming Hank while trapped. The adoption committee saw it. So did Judge Cass. And apparently, so did a lot of other beings on the station. The next day, Rafe stood in the committee chambers with Buddy at his side. 5 members sat behind a long table, representing different species and station departments. They had his file open in front of them. The committee chair, a Diluvian elder named Sorn, spoke first. "Mr. Cortez, we have reviewed your application thoroughly. Your qualifications meet all requirements. Your living situation is appropriate. Your commitment to the animals' welfare is evident. However, we have concerns." Rafe's stomach dropped. "What concerns?" "This Kralax clearly has value beyond personal companionship. His therapeutic abilities could benefit the entire station community. Restricting him to private ownership seems wasteful." Rafe started to argue, but Sorn held up a hand. "Let me finish. We are not denying your adoption. We are offering a partnership. You retain full ownership and custody, but Buddy becomes a registered station therapy animal, available for scheduled visits with beings in need. You would receive a stipend for this service and official recognition as a handler." "I get to keep him?" Rafe asked. "He stays with you, lives with you, but his gifts are shared with others who need them, if you agree." Rafe looked down at Buddy. The Kralex looked back, tail wagging, completely trusting whatever decision Rafe made. "What do you think, Buddy? Want to help people?" Buddy barked once, a sound he had only started making recently. It was crooked like everything else about him, but it was full of enthusiasm. "We accept," Rafe said. 6 months later. Buddy was a familiar sight throughout Meridian Hub. The crooked Kralax with the mismatched eyes visited the medical center 3 times a week, sitting with patients who needed comfort. He attended grief counseling sessions. He visited workers in isolation. He even sat in on difficult diplomatic meetings, his calming presence helping diffuse tensions. Beings who once would have turned away in disgust now smiled when they saw him. Children from a dozen species wanted to pet him. Other humans adopted rescue animals, inspired by Buddy's story. The station's culture shifted, just slightly, toward valuing function and spirit over appearance. Rafe watched it all from his usual position by Buddy's side. The crooked face that Trell had found so ugly now represented something different to the station community. Resilience. Second chances. The idea that worth comes from who you are, not what you look like. One evening, Rafe sat in his quarters with Buddy sprawled across the couch, taking up more space than any creature his size should. The Kralax was exhausted from a long day of visits but looked content. Rafe scratched behind his uneven ears. "You know what, Buddy? You are beautiful, always were, just took me to see it." Buddy's tail thumped against the cushions. His mismatched eyes drifted closed. In the morning, there would be more people to help, more sadness to ease, more connections to make. But for now, there was just this: a human and his companion, both far from home, both finding purpose in each other. Outside the viewport, stars glittered in the void. Somewhere among them was Earth, where humans had learned long ago that the best companions are not the prettiest ones. They are the ones who stay beside you when things get hard, the ones who give loyalty without conditions, the ones who teach you that love has nothing to do with symmetry. Buddy had taught an entire space station that lesson, and it all started because one human mechanic looked at an abandoned creature and saw not ugliness, but a friend worth saving.